All right. All right. Looks like we're live now. Let me just see if the sound is working. All right. All right. Looks like we're live now. All right. Looks like it is. Let me just see if the sound is working. All right. All right. All right. A little repeat there. Okay, I'm going to start the recording here. Hey guys, how you doing? The magical mystery tour is hoping to take you away. Hoping to take you away, take you today. That's what I'm going to try to do. Anytime I try to sing Paul McCartney, I'm always like 95% in my falsetto. And every once in a while, I have to drop. His voice is so high. What a great singer, though. So yeah, the Magical Mystery Tour. We were talking about albums that inspired me in my childhood. I started with Focus, Moving Waves, then Abbey Road, which was the first Beatles album I listened to. And I had heard the Beatles before. In fact, I had heard a lot of the songs on Abbey Road, but I didn't know they were the Beatles. I had always associated the Beatles with like their earlier stuff, like I Want to Hold Your Hand and stuff like that. But yeah, so that was me realizing, wow, the Beatles actually like had a very diverse sound, like really interesting stuff, and I really loved Abbey Road. This album, my sisters, I think, one of them bought Abbey Road, the other one I think bought this one around the same time. I don't know if it was the same time but this one was the second one I listened to. Um, so and I liked it just as much as Abbey Road, honestly. Maybe even better in some ways. I mean, Abbey Road. I go back and forth between which ones are my favorites. Abbey Road usually is number one because it has that kind of prog rock epic at the end. It's really a medley of songs, but it's kind of like one of the early side-long epics, even though it didn't fill the whole side, but it was close. But and so like that one was kind of like the Beatles, like stepping into that world of prog rock, which I really like. But this one is really good too, and it's funny because it's usually not rated that high. A lot of people ignore this one because it's really a soundtrack to kind of a crummy movie that they made. It was probably the worst Beatles movie. It wasn't that bad, I mean, but it was a little boring. It just kind of dragged a bit. Had some cool moments, some cool music videos. But it's not entirely a soundtrack. It was really only the first side. I think it was an EP that went along with it. It was a TV movie, um, and then they stuck some singles on the end and like a couple other tracks that they had lying around. So it was kind of just like an odds and sods sort of put together album. So that's why a lot of people don't really consider this to be a great Beatles album. But if you just listen to it as an album, like just look, I mean, let's look at the track listing here. Like you got Magical Mystery Tour, banger. Fool on the Hill, great song. Flying, that's kind of one of the, I think it's the only instrumental, although it's not really instrumental. They have some vocalizations, but no lyrics in it. Um, Blue Jay Way, Your Mother Should Know. These are all great songs. I Am the Walrus, and Hello Goodbye. These are all the songs that were kind of part of the soundtrack. And then you got Strawberry Fields Forever, which hadn't been released on any of the albums. It was a single. B side was Penny Lane. Two incredible songs, like top tier Beatles songs. They often called that single the double A side. Baby You're a Rich Man is just a fun song, and then All You Need Is Love, classic. So when you actually look at the track list and just look at how many great songs are on this, it's it's a pretty impressive album. Hello Goodbye, I remember as a kid, that's like such a great pop song. Like when you're a kid, it just puts you in a great mood. Let's just go through them all actually, like we did before. The Magical Mystery Tour, the way it comes in, just so powerful. So like the trumpets, because I'm a trumpet player, so I really appreciate that. Um, Everything about this song is just incredible. It's short, but it has so many changes in it too. Like it has time shift changes. Then at the end, it kind of drifts off. It's kind of like a mini prog rock epic, like it's a very short song, but it's going through like all these different moods. Um, like it goes into that the magical 1 2 3 1. It goes into like 3 4 time. Like it starts off 4 4, then it goes into 3 4. When it slows down a bit, the magical mystery tour is hoping to take you away, hoping to take you away. I don't want to sing that again. My falsetto. But yeah, it's such a great song, and it always puts. When you listen to the song, you have to turn the volume up, and it just wakes up the whole house. When you play it, if you wanna wake up your household, your family or whatever is living with you, put this album on, just blast it, and it may annoy them because it wakes them up, but it'll put them in a good mood. In fact, I think the latest Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny. That song was used. That actually woke up Indiana Jones. He was like living in an apartment with a bunch of college kids in the '60s, and that song just blasted and just woke him up. But it's funny because that was kind of like what I was using that song for when I was living at home with my folks. I loved it. The Fool on the Hill. This is another great song. It's just it's very melancholy. Day after day, alone on a hill, the man with the foolish grin is keeping perfectly still. That's just, and then it's got this flute behind it. Beautiful. It's just a really nice, pleasant song. Has a deep meaning too. Like, who is this fool on the hill? I remember my dad saying, and the eyes in his head sees the world spinning round. That usually was like a reference to drugs, probably LSD. We all knew the Beatles were doing heavy drugs at this time. But maybe not. 67, I think that might have been their peak. Yeah, and it's I love that song. Flying. This is kind of like a very melancholy. It's kind of very trippy. It's like this was 67, so psychedelia was, really popular. It's like acid rock, whatever you want to call it. It has like kind of just a relaxed vibe. There is a vocal melody like la 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 la. It's like right over my break in my voice. La 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 la. There's like those la-las going through it. Yeah, it's kind of, it has this weird trippy synth going through it to this whistling sound, I think. But yeah, it's a cool song. I like it. It's very chill. And then Blue Jay Way. I mean, George Harrison, I think, starting with Revolver, and then he did that song Love to You or Love You Too, I think it's called. That was his first foray into Indian music, because he was learning the sitar from is it Ravi Shankar? Was that his name? Am I confusing with someone else? Yeah, and so he started introducing Indian music into the Beatles. There's some really cool stuff. I think he did that one. Then he did on Sgt. Pepper, of course, Within You, Without You, which is the big long one, 6 minutes long, which is pretty long for a Beatles song. It has this cool instrumental, this Indian instrumental. I remember my aunt, she's saying, because my dad had bought her this album when he was was he in the army at that time? I don't know, but he bought her that. Came home and brought her not this album, but Sgt. Pepper, and it kind of like she wore out the grooves on that song. She played it so much because it was a cool thing. And there was another one that was a single. I think it was Without Going Out of Your Window, I Can Know the Ways of Heaven. The farther one travels, the less one knows. Or is it the less one goes or the less one knows? I don't know. Very philosophical stuff. I was really into that. I think that was Into the Light was the name of that song, and it has a cool little sitar thing. Actually, the first song that he did with the sitar was actually on Rubber Soul. Of course, it was Norwegian Wood, but it wasn't that full-blown Indian sound that he had on these other tracks. This one, Blue Jay Way, was actually the last one he did. the last Indian kind of inspired track, and it's probably the darkest. It's really cool, and it was the first one I heard because keep in mind this is the second Beatles song I listened to, so this was the first of the Indian inspired Beatles songs I had ever heard, and it was dark. Like I remember, I was like, I wasn't sure I liked that song at first because it was kind of weird. I was probably like 11 or 12 when I heard it, maybe 10 actually, because it was if this was the first Beatles song, I was probably only 10 actually. One of the first Beatles albums I heard, because that was when I first started listening to their albums. But yeah, Blue Jay Way. Yeah, it's. Let's see if I can remember what how does it go again? The blue. I can't. I'm blanking out on it. Let me look up the lyrics real quick, so I could see what. There's a fog upon L.A. and my friends have lost their way. There was like this weird dissonant, very just dark. Like it sounded like he's telling like a ghost story or something. They'll be over soon, they say. Sitting here in Blue Jay Way. Please don't be long. Please don't you be very long, for I may be asleep. You know what? Actually, you know what? It might not even be an Indian. Like it's kind of more psychedelic than it is like that Indian sound. And I don't even know if there's a sitar on it. But I always associated this song with one of those, with that kind of quadrilogy of Indian songs that he did. It's got a little bit of it. A little bit of that influence, but it's more trippy and just really spacey and just kind of dark and like you're going on a bad trip. Like flying's like a good pleasant trip, and then Blue Jay Way is like this is like the dark part of the trip. Like when you're going like it's getting a little weird now, like it's getting a little scary. And then suddenly Your Mother Should Know comes on. And John Lennon always criticized Paul for writing these granny songs because he did it with When I'm 64, and there were other songs I think that were kind of dancing on that. Honey Pie is another one, but yeah, Your Mother Should Know is definitely one of the ones that fall in that, and it's kind of Paul telling people to listen to a song that was a hit before your mother was born. So keep in mind this came out in '67. So if the audience, they're mainly like kids, like teenagers at this time. So their parents were probably born in the early 1900s, like maybe like 1910, 1911, maybe 1920 if they were younger, in the 20s. So what were the songs that were coming out at that time? Like you got to go way back to like ragtime stuff, like Scott Joplin, maybe. There was some blues stuff, but it wasn't really a lot of that stuff wasn't really well known. Maybe Woody Guthrie, This Land Is Your Land. Actually, that was the 30s. They were alive. The parents would have been alive then. So yeah, a lot of classical music, obviously. Jazz was kind of coming into its own. So the hits, like what were those hits? Like I always thought about that, like because it's easy for me to think of hits before my mother was born. My mother was born in the 50s, so like there were a lot of in the 40s. There was the big band, a lot of jazz stuff, a lot of a lot of the stuff that you hear in like Looney Tunes cartoons, like the merry-go-round broke down and stuff like that, But yeah, so there was a lot of hits for that, but I'm curious, like because there wasn't really much of a recording industry in the early 1900s, like 1910, this is like the infancy of the recording industry. Like I guess they had gramophone records. They had, eventually they had 78s, I think. And when did the 78s come out? Was that in the teens, the 19 teens? I don't know. But it was what was the hits? I'm curious what songs he was thinking. It was probably songs like Honey Pie and stuff like those type of granny songs, you know. But it's a fun song. I always like that song. Um, then we go get really weird again with "I Am the Walrus." The video for this song is so funny. Um, it's really like the costumes. Like let's look at the cover again, because I remember when I first saw this album, I was like, "This is the Beatles." Like you're not used to seeing seeing such a goofy album. Like when you think of the Beatles, you think of their mop top heads, you know, and then here they are just wearing these these costumes. There's the walrus. There's I don't know that looks like Gonzo or something. And then a rabbit thing. And then a bird thing. What is that? Is that a rhino or a hippo or a? I have no idea what that is. It's weird. But who's wearing the walrus suit? Is that Paul? I know in I think it's Glass Onion. The John says that the walrus is Paul, but I don't know. I always thought maybe it was John. I don't know. But yeah. So I Am the Walrus. Like it's kind of an infamous song that because a lot of people were reading in. I didn't know this at the time when I was listening to it for the first time, but a lot of people were reading a lot into the Beatles lyrics, like trying to read into these weird meetings. They read into, A Day in the Life that Paul was actually dead and that he died in a car crash and that they replaced him. And it's a theory that still like some people still believe. I think a lot of people believe it jokingly, but yeah, it's so this was kind of him poking fun at that, coming up with like a whole new like just the most ridiculous lyrics you could come up with, and seeing what theories people had. Like let's take a look at this. I Am the Walrus lyrics. So yeah. I am he as you are me, and we are all together. See how they run like pigs from a gun, see how they fly. I'm crying, sitting on a cornflake. See, like it's just references to weird things. Like it's not supposed to make sense. It's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland, just nonsense poem, like the Jabberwocky, but even more nonsensical than that. Crabalackle fishwife, pornographic priestess. Boy, you've been a naughty girl. You let your knickers down. I I always wondered if it was because I couldn't really hear what he said. If he actually said the N word there, and I was like, whoa, did he just say? But no, it's not. It's knickers, as in dropping his pants, I guess. Or nick. Isn't knickers like a? Isn't that like female underwear? I don't even know what knickers are. It's a very British word. Eggman. I am the Eggman. They are the Eggmen. I am the Walrus. Goo goo gajoob. And of course, people did come up with all sorts of crazy like ideas for what that song meant, but it wasn't really supposed to mean anything. I'm curious, what were some of the theories? Like, what were some of the theories that? I'm gonna look that up. That people came up with for I Am the Walrus. Let's see here. Well, the Paul is dead theory. This was a symbol of death in certain cultures. The walrus was a symbol of death in certain cultures, and the line "the walrus was Paul" was seen as a confession. Others claimed "Goo Goo Gajoob" meant living is easy with eyes closed in Inuit. And walrus reference to the walrus and the carpenter. Lennon noted, to his dismay, was the villain of the story. The walrus was the villain. Well, he did eat all the all of the I can't think of the word. I'm blanking out. The oysters. Yeah. And nods to Lewis Carroll, The Walrus and the Carpenter, Elementary Penguin, Allen Ginsberg, and the mechanical mantra chanting of the Hare Krishna movement. Okay. Drug-induced imagery, of course, nursery rhymes, yellow matter custard were taken from Liverpool's children's playground rhyme. All right, so those are some of the theories. But I according to John, it didn't really mean anything. It was just supposed to see if have fun with people, see what they could come up with. Really weird song, really weird sounds going through it, like psychedelic as hell, and kind of a long song, goes into this weird march. Like this is, I mean, the Beatles were prog at this period. I feel like progressive rock, just going into all these weird stuff. That's why I really like this stuff, even as a young age when I didn't really know what prog was at this point. I had listened to Focus, but I didn't know that was prog. I just thought it was like just weird, like hard rock mixed with some softer stuff. But I liked it. I didn't know what it was then. I didn't know what progressive rock was when I was 10 years old or younger. But I just liked this music. I immediately took a liking to it, much more than the music that was coming out at the time. Because remember, when I was 10, it was like 1990. So, what was popular at the time? You had like Paula Abdul and the New Kids on the Block, and a lot of the older bands. Genesis was still around, but they weren't releasing like Nursery Crime at that point. They were releasing Invisible Touch, or or Jesus He Knows Me, which was an album that was going to come out, the next one. But they weren't doing the cool stuff that I was discovering at this point. So yeah, I kind of just was like, I kind of like, when I was listening to Focus, of course, that was my first step into this world. But now listening to the Beatles, I was discovering, oh my God, the music before was so much better. Like that was me realizing, it's like, I got to go back and like, I got to listen to this stuff. This stuff is way better than the stuff that's coming out now. And I knew it then. Like I knew it as a kid then. I think there was some pop stuff that I liked. Actually, I should do a review, because I remember probably the first tape that I bought. Actually, I think it was the very first cassette tape, because before CDs, in the 80s, we were buying mainly cassettes because they didn't skip like records. So cassettes were like the big thing. I bought Pop Goes the World from Men Without Hats, and I remember really liking that album. I haven't heard it in a long time. I don't know, like probably I probably haven't listened to that album since probably like the early 90s, maybe even not, maybe 80s was like, I remember listening to it in the car a few times, but it was like one of those albums I just forgot about, but I really liked, and I picked that up, and it was, it might have, I don't know if I bought it or if it was my sister, because they bought that and they bought this Squeeze album at the same time with the Hourglass. An hourglass, that song was on it. Those two tapes, but I really liked Pop Goes the World. For some reason I liked that more, and later I found out that Ian Anderson plays on that album. Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull plays flute on one of the songs on it. I think it was On a Tuesday was the song. So it's that British kind of, like, they call it Andy Edwards calls it the English aesthetic, that was all over a lot of this music that the Beatles had. A lot of progressive rock bands from England had it. I was just drawn to that sound. It just sounded really interesting to me, and it probably helped that I was a fantasy nerd. I liked Dungeons and Dragons. I liked like a lot of those fantasy movies. And Star Wars, of course. And The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and all that. I was getting into all that stuff. So like I think the English aesthetic has a lot of that, and all this stuff. The Beatles, even from the very beginning, they had that. The beginning they were a little bit more American influenced, but by this point they had brought in that English aesthetic full force. It was on all their albums, but especially these later albums. There was definitely a lot of that English aesthetic that I loved. So yeah, that's I Am the Walrus. Cool song, really cool song, and it really impressed me. Hello Goodbye. Now this was probably my favorite when I first heard it. It was just such a fun, happy, catchy, the perfect pop song. Just really good. I think all kids like this song. Like, I have not met a kid who did not like this song, because I remember when many years later, after I had heard this, the Beatles came out with a greatest hits album called One, which was actually very popular. And all my younger cousins, that was their introduction to the Beatles, and for some reason they all loved this song. They all loved "Hello Goodbye." You say yes, I say no. You say stop, and I say go, go, go. Oh no. Yeah, you see how I have to be in falsetto anytime I sing Paul McCartney. You say goodbye. It's just such a great song. It's just fun. There's nothing more I can say about that. It's just a fun, good song. I remember when I made a mixtape though with this song, I left out the end because it kind of ends like hello, and then there's a pause, and then it goes hey hey hello, ooh, ooh. And it's it's funny because the I forgot about it when I made a mixtape, and I remember you're always keeping track of how much space you have left. You're looking at the little bit of tape left. You're keeping an eye on that, and I stopped it there, and then I put the next song on, and then I realized later, oh shoot, I just cut off the end of the song. I never forgot about it after that. Anytime I made a mixtape that had this song, I made a ton of mixtapes back in these days, so but I always kept that ending on. And then we get to Strawberry Fields Forever, which is I remember, Hello Goodbye. Like let me just mention one thing. None of these songs up until Hello Goodbye had I heard before. Hello Goodbye I knew. I'd heard it on the radio before, so I was like, oh, I recognize the song. But none of these other ones. These other ones were all new songs to me when I listened to this album. Hello Goodbye I'd heard before, and Strawberry Fields Forever I had heard before. But it's not until I listened to it on the album that I realized how cool this song actually was. It's like, because when you're listening to the radio, you're not really listening. It's just sort of on the background. When you get a new CD, and you put it on, you're actually listening to it, or I am. Like it's like because you just bought it, you spent a lot of money on it. Although I didn't buy this one, but it was still like CDs were a new thing at the time. So like, anytime we got a new CD, it was always like a big deal. So anyone in my family. So you would sit down and listen to it. You look at the artwork, like look at this. What is this? This is actually a scene from the movie. I think they're walking down the stairs. Like I don't know if you'll be able to see me. Let me raise this up a bit. They're doing like this funny little walk, right? Where they're like snapping, or they're doing like. Or they're snapping as they walk down. The Ruddles did a good thing. I just wanted to mention that because you probably couldn't hear me. I wasn't talking into the mic when I did that. I just wanted to mention that because anytime I was walking down the stairs, I would do that. That was like my thing. Just a really funny way. They kick their foot out as you see the four of them walking down the stairs. It's just the movie is just weird. It's just I would recommend seeing it once. You don't have to see it more than once. It's not really that good a movie, but it just to see what they were doing at the time, like just the weirdness. But yeah, it's definitely their worst movie. They did 5 movies. Hard Day's Night, usually considered the best, although I prefer Help, which was the second one they did. That was a really good one. And then they did this, and then it was like, what the heck? But it was a TV movie, so it doesn't get. You don't have to compare it to the scale of the theatrical movies. And then they did Yellow Submarine, which I loved. And although they really weren't in that, I think they had voice actors. They kind of did like a little clip at the end, but they're not really in that one. But it is cool. It's especially when you're a kid. Yellow Submarine's a fun movie, very trippy too. And then the last one, of course, is Let It Be, which I didn't see until many, many years later. Like I saw the first 4. Let It Be, I think it was at the library, and my sisters rented it, and they watched it. I didn't see it though. And then it was kind of like, because I think Paul didn't like it. He thought it made the Beatles look bad because it was like during their breakup. It wasn't until many years later that I found it online and watched it. And then, of course, Peter Jackson kind of made the super ultra extended cut of Let It Be with his Get Back movie, which was really good. Definitely worth watching. But yeah, so anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about Strawberry Fields, and I'm on this huge tangent. But Strawberry Fields Forever, just a very weird song, but very cool. And I had heard it before. It was on, it's a very popular song, but it's really dark. Like it's kind of like got that same Blue Jay Way thing. Like you could probably turn this into like a doom metal song if you wanted to. Maybe I'll try that. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields. Nothing is real and nothing to get on about. There's something like very like evil about it. Strawberry Fields forever. And then it gets into this weird kind of trippy, like kind of calm. Living is easy with eyes closed. I can't really sing like him, but living is easy with eyes closed. Misunderstanding. Oh, I can. I just got to back up from the mic. All you see, it's getting hard to be someone, but it all works out. It doesn't matter much to me. Yeah, I don't know. I remember covering that song and trying to do like that evil kind of thing. That voice, that angry kind of. It is a pretty. When it has like that strings, that very deep bass, cello and upright bass, it's really cool. Like George Martin was probably responsible for all that, but I love that stuff. Great song. Penny Lane. This might be the best Beatles song. It's up there. It's there's a Day in the Life, which is great. There's a bunch of really great songs. I love Penny Lane, and it's on the surface it seems simple. It's like Penny Lane, there is a barber, but listen to the do 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 boom 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 bum bum bum, and then there's like that cool chord and all. They're selling puppies from a tray. The chords there. Yeah, it's I know there's a lot of other YouTubers and stuff that analyze the chords in this song. It's just so cool sounding. It's so unique. It is a short, it's a pop song, but it's a very sophisticated pop song. It's like, and it has like everything about it is just great. Every moment. There's a cool little piccolo trumpet at the end. I don't know. It's just, I know there's that high note, that infamous high note that, he didn't think he could reach, and then he reached it. But with the piccolo trumpet, it's a little easier to reach those high notes than it is with a regular one. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, there's just so many cool melodic and harmonic moments in that song. And it's a very sophisticated, might be the most sophisticated pop song. It's just so good. And I think it exemplifies the Beatles at their best. Like that's why they're so good, is that they were a pop band. They could appeal to a mass audience, but they had like this complexity and this kind of sophistication to them, behind the surface, like almost classical sophistication, while still appealing to such a broad audience. That's why they're considered the best, I think. And I think Penny Lane kind of exemplifies that. Just an incredible song. Baby You're a Rich Man, not their best song. I'll be honest, it's probably my least favorite song on this album. It's good though. It's a, Baby You're a Rich Man too. It's catchy. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek song, just kind of them goofing around. But yeah, it's a good song. But definitely not my favorite on this album. And then of course, All You Need Is Love. So I had heard of the songs that I knew Hello, Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, and All You Need Is Love. Very strong second side of this album. Then I remember thinking like wow, the second side of this album is really good. Like the first side I didn't know any of these songs. Second side I knew like almost all of them except for Baby You're a Rich Man. And All You Need Is Love, another very, it was on the radio all the time. It starts off with, I think, is it the French national anthem? Bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum ba dum ba dum ba. And then love, love, love. Really great harmonies. And it's got such a positive message. All you need is love. Love is all you need. And yeah, fun song. There's some references to the, she loves you, yeah, 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 at the end, There's a video that goes with this that wasn't in the movie, I don't think. I think it was just a standalone video because I think this was released as a single, I believe, with Baby Rich Man. I don't know. I don't know what the B side was or whatever, but yeah, but it came out with this video with a bunch of people like uh, just hanging out, just chilling, tripping out. Just it's a fun video. I think it was the same. Was it recorded the same thing as Hey Jude? Hey Jude was another single that came out shortly after this album in 1968. This came out in '67. This album, but so it was. But it might have been recorded around the same time and just released later. I'm not sure. Be cool. Maybe some of you guys can answer that. But yeah, it was a cool way to end the album. Another great song. Beatles were fantastic. This is I definitely like Abbey Road more than this album, but I remember being very impressed by this. It might be my second favorite Beatles album. It changes though. Abbey Road is usually number one, and occasionally I switch it out. There's Revolver, which is fantastic. Sergeant Pepper, of course. White Album, for a while, White Album was my favorite. In fact, very early on, actually, because I think the White Album was the next one I heard. That one became my favorite. And then Rubber Soul for a while. That one was my favorite. It's usually between those albums. Those are usually the ones I go to them as my favorites. And this one, of course. So yeah, it's I guess I'm trying to think of, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, but I think I forgot it. So yeah, I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. So yeah, check it out if you haven't heard it. Yeah, I'll probably be continuing this series. I don't have a schedule. Just when I feel like it, I'm gonna do another one. I'll probably edit these and put them up on my YouTube channel, so that they're they're a little bit more visible. Maybe do some clips, and see if people want to tune into the next one. So I try to generate some interest, and I'll talk to you guys later.